Prashna Upanishad. First question. Sukesa Bharadvaja, Saibhya Satyakama, Sauyayani Gagya, Kasalya Asvalayana, Bhagava Vaidabhi, and Kabandi Katyayana were students filled with devotion for Brahman, the Supreme Spirit. Their minds rested on Brahman, and they were in search of the highest Brahman. Once they said, "The holy Pipalada can explain all the sacred teaching." And thus thinking, they approached him, bringing as a sign of reverence fuel for the sacred fire. The sage said to them, "Remain another year in steadiness, purity and faith. Ask then anything you desire, and if I know, I will tell you all." When the time came, Kabandi Katyayana approached the sage and said, "Master, whence came all created beings?" The sage replied, "In the beginning the Creator longed for the joy of creation. He remained in meditation, and then came Rayi, matter, and Prana, life. These two, thought he, will produce beings for me. The sun is life, and the moon is matter. All that has form, solid or subtle, is matter. Therefore, form is matter. When the rising morning sun enters the eastern skies, then he bathes in his light all life that is in the east. And then the south and the west and the north, and all the sky are illumined by that light that gives life to all that lives. Thus rises the sun as fire, as life in its infinite variety. It was said in a verse of the Rig Veda, "The sun is rising in golden radiance, the sun of 1,000 rays, in 100 regions abiding. The God omniscient, the aim of all prayers, the light and fire supreme, the infinite life of all beings. The Lord of creation is in truth the time of the year. This has two paths, the way of the south and the way of the north. Those who worship thinking, 'We have done sacrifices and pious works,' attain only the regions of the moon and return to life and death. That is why those sages who desire children and the life of the family follow the path of the south. This is the path that leads to the ancestors. But those who in search of the inner spirit follow the spiritual path of the north with steadiness, purity, faith and wisdom, attain the regions of the sun. And there is the ocean of life, the refuge supreme, the land of immortality where there is no fear. From there they do not return again. It is the end of the journey." There is a verse of the Rig Veda that says, "Some speak of a father who sends rain from the heaven of the north, resting on the seasons and showing himself in 12 ways. Others speak of a sage in the heaven of the south, with a chariot of 7 wheels and 6 spokes. The day and night are the Lord of creation. Day is life and night is matter. Those who join in love by day waste life, but they follow the good path, those who join in love by night. The dark fortnight is indeed matter, and the bright fortnight is life. Some sages perform their rituals in the bright fortnight, but some in the time of darkness. Food is in truth the Lord of creation. From food seed is produced, and from this beings are born. Those who obey the law of the Lord of creation, they in turn become creators and like him produce a pair. They attain the pale regions of the moon. But those in whom there is no deceit, untruth or bad faith, who live in steadiness, purity and truth, theirs are the radiant regions of the sun." Then Bhagava Vaidabhi asked, Master, what are the powers that keep the union of a being? How many keep burning the lamps of life? And which amongst them is supreme? The sage replied, The powers are space, air, fire, water, and earth, and voice, mind, the eye, and the ear. These powers light the lamps of life and say, We keep the union of this being, and we are its foundation. But life, the power supreme, said to them, Do not fall into delusion. It is I, in my fivefold division, keep the union of this being, and I am its foundation. But they believed him not. Life was offended and rose aloft to leave the body, and all the powers of life had to rise, and, life coming again to rest, all the powers had to rest. As when a queen bee arises, all the bees with her arise, and when she comes to rest again, then all again come to rest. Even so it happened to the powers of the voice, the mind, the eye, and the ear. The powers then understood and sang in joy this song of life. Life is the fire that burns, and is the sun that gives light. Life is the wind and the rain, and the thunder in the sky. Life is matter and is earth, what is and what is not, and what beyond is in eternity. On life all things are resting, as spokes in the centre of a wheel. On life are resting the Vedas and prayers and warriors and priests. To thee, resting with thy powers, O life, all beings offer adoration. As Lord of creation thou movest in the womb of the mother, thence to be reborn. Thou art the chief bearer of gifts to the gods, the first offering made to the departed. Thou art the poetry of the seers, the truth of ancient sages. Thou art Rudra, the god of protection. Thou art Indra in thy radiance, O life. As the sun that wanders in heaven, thou art Lord of all heavenly lights. When the rain pours down from heaven, O life, all thy creatures rejoice, and they say, Food for us shall be in abundance. Thou art pure, O life, supreme seer, Lord and consumer of all. We, the givers of what thou enjoyest, thou, our Father, the breath of all life. Be favourable unto us, O life, with that invisible form of thine, which is in the voice, the eye, and the ear, and which lives in the mind. Go not from us. In thy power is all this world, and even the third most sacred heaven. As a mother her child, protect us, O life. Give us glory, and give us wisdom. Third question. Then Kausalya Asvalayana asked, Master, this life, whence does it arise? How does it come to this body? How, after diffusing itself, does it abide here? How does it leave the body? How does it sustain the universe without and the universe within? The sage replied, Great are the questions you ask from me. But you are a great lover of Brahman. I will answer. Life comes from the spirit. Even as a man casts a shadow, so the spirit casts the shadow of life. And as a shadow of former lives, a new life comes to this body. As when a ruler commands his officials and appoints them cities to be ruled in his name, even so prana, the power of life, rules the other living powers of the body. Apana rules its lower regions. Prana itself lives in the eye and the ear, and moves through the nose and the mouth. Samana rules the middle regions, and distributes the life-giving offering of food. From Samana come the 7 flames. In the heart dwells the Atman, the Self. It is the centre of 101 little channels. From each one of them come 100 channels more. 72,000 smaller channels branch from each one of these. In all these millions of little channels moves the power of Vayana. Rising by one of them, the living power of Udana leads to the heaven of purity by good actions, to the hell of evil by evil actions, and if by both again, to this land of man. The sun is prana, the life of this universe, and he rises giving joy to the life in human eyes. The divinity of the earth rules the lower regions of Apana. Between the sun and the earth there is space or samana. Air is Vayana. Fire is Udana. When that fire of life is gone, senses are absorbed in mind, and man comes to life again. His last thoughts lead him to prana, and accompanied by the living fire of Udana, and led by Atman, the spirit himself, he goes to the regions deserved and desired in imagination. He who thus knows the meaning of life, his offspring never dies, and attains life everlasting. There is a verse that says, "He who knows the rising of life and how it comes to the body, how it abides there in its fivefold division, and knows its relation to the inner spirit, enjoys eternal life, in truth enjoys eternal life." Fourth question. Then Sauyayani Gagya asked, "Master, how many powers sleep in man, and how many remain awake? Who is that spirit that beholds the wonder of dreams? Who enjoys the mystery of sleep with no dreams? Who is that spirit on whom all the others find rest?" The sage replied, "As when before darkness falls the rays of the setting sun seem all to become one in its circle of light, though at the hour of sunrise they spread out again, even so all the powers of the senses become one in the higher power of the mind. Then a person does not see, hear, smell, taste, or touch, does not speak, receive or give, move, or enjoy joys of love. Then people say he sleeps. But in the city of the body the fires of life are burning, they sleep not. Apana is like the sacred home fire for ever kept burning from father to son. Vayana is like the fire of the south for offerings to the ancestors. Prana is like the fire of the east, lit up by the home fire. Samana is the Hotri priest, evenly distributing the two offerings of expiration and inspiration. The mind is the performer of the sacrifice, and Udana is its fruit, since every day it takes the mind in sleep to Brahman, the Almighty. And in dreams the mind beholds its own immensity. What has been seen is seen again, and what has been heard is heard again. What has been felt in different places of faraway regions returns to the mind again. Seen and unseen, heard and unheard, felt and not felt, the mind sees all, since the mind is all. But when the mind is overcome by its own radiance, then dreams are no longer seen. Joy and peace come to the body. Even as birds, O beloved, return to their tree for rest, thus all things find their rest in Atman, the Supreme Spirit. All things find their final peace in their inmost self, the Spirit. Earth, water, fire, air, space, and their invisible elements, sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and their various fields of sense, voice, hands, and all powers of action, mind, reason, the sense of eye, thought, inner light, and their objects, and even life and all that life sustains. It is the spirit of man who sees, hears, feels perfumes, touches and tastes, thinks and acts, and has all consciousness. and the spirit of man finds peace in the Spirit supreme and eternal. He who knows, O my son, that eternal Spirit, incorporeal and shadowless, luminous and everlasting, attains that eternal Spirit. He knows the All and becomes the All. A verse there is that says, "He who knows, O my beloved, that eternal Spirit wherein consciousness and the senses, the powers of life and the elements find final peace, knows the All, and has gone into the All." Fifth question. Then Saibhya Satyakama asked, "Master, that man who until the end of his life rests on Om, his meditation, where does he go after life?" The sage replied, "The word Om, O Satyakama, is the transcendent and the immanent Brahman, the Spirit Supreme. With the help of this sacred word, the wise attains the one or the other." Om, or Aum, has 3 sounds. He who rests on the first, his meditation, is illumined thereby, and after death returns speedily to this world of men, led by the harmonies of the Rig Veda. Remaining here, in steadiness, purity and truth, he attains greatness. And if he rests his mind in meditation on the first 2 sounds, he is led by the harmonies of the Yajur-Veda to the regions of the moon. After enjoying their heavenly joys, he returns to earth again. But if, with the 3 sounds of the eternal Om, he places his mind in meditation upon the Supreme Spirit, he comes to the regions of light of the sun. There he becomes free from all evil, even as a snake sheds its old skin, and with the harmonies of the Sama-Veda he goes to the heaven of Brahma, wherefrom he can behold the spirit that dwells in the city of the human body, and which is above the highest life. There are 2 verses that say, "The 3 sounds not in union lead again to life that dies, but the wise who merge them into a harmony of union in outer, inner and middle actions become steady, he trembles no more." With the harmonies of the Rig Veda unto this world of man, and with those of the Yajur Veda to the middle heavenly regions, but with the help of Om, the sage goes to those regions that the seers know in the harmonies of the Sama Veda. There he finds the peace of the Supreme Spirit, where there is no dissolution or death, and where there is no fear. Sixth question. Then Sukesa Bharadvaja said, "Master, Prince Hiranyanaba, Kausalya, came once to me and asked this question. Do you know the spirit of 16 forms?" "I know him not," I answered the young prince. "If I knew him, how could I say that I knew him not? For he who speaks untruth withers like a tree to the roots. I will not speak untruth." The prince became silent, and, mounting his chariot, departed. "And now I ask you, where is that spirit?" The sage replied, "O my son, the spirit in whom 16 forms arise is here within this body." The spirit thought, "In whose going out shall I go out? And in whose staying shall I stay?" And he created life, and from life faith and space and air, light, water and earth, the senses and the mind. He created food, and from food austerity, sacred poems, holy actions, and even the worlds. And in the worlds name was created. As when rivers flowing towards the ocean find their final peace, their name and form disappear, and people speak only of the ocean. Even so the 16 forms of the seer all flow towards the spirit, and find there final peace. Their name and form disappear, and people speak only of spirit. There is a verse that says, "These forms in him find rest like spokes in the centre of a wheel. Know ye the spirit that should be known, that death may afflict you not." Then the sage said to the disciples, "Thus far I know the Supreme Spirit. There is nothing beyond." Bowing to him in adoration, the disciples said, "You are in truth our Father, who has saved us from ignorance, and has led us to the shore beyond." Adoration to the Supreme Seers. Adoration to the Supreme Seers.